everybody, it's Gene Martz, and thanks again for joining us back here on the Hartford Small Biz Ahead Podcast. If you're listening or you are watching, you're in for a lot of good information from our guest today, Matt Berky. Matt is the owner, engineer, and composer. I need to ask you a little bit more about that, Matt, of Massive Productions, LLC, which is based right outside of Hartford, Connecticut. What a coincidence. Matt, it's great to have you on, so thanks for joining me.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So what does composer mean? Let's start with this. Tell us about your company, and then I got to hear what you're talking about when you identify yourself as a composer.
Got it. So, so actually 20 years ago this November, I started a very small company called Massive Productions, actually out of my home. And, as a guy who owns a recording studio, I originally got a college degree in music and technology, and fell in love with that. And then, of course, along 20 years of business, I've become a businessman, so
yeah,
I've kind of had to get into that kicking and screaming, right? Like,
right.
Learning the ins and outs of business and all that stuff. But, mostly Massive Productions is I call it a corporate production studio. So a lot of radio commercials, TV mixing, and yes, scoring. So composer, I write music for radio, for TV, for films. I write anything, any genre people need. So it's always something different here going on. Massive Productions.
That's very cool. What is the inner life of a cell?
Very good. You did your research. The inner life of a cell was one of, it was a piece done for Harvard University for their biology department. And it was literally an animation of what the inner life of a cell would look like. And
Okay.
I wrote a piece of music that was kind of like new age classical, I guess, if people look up inner life of the cell, you'll find it. It's all over the internet. There's a lot of people actually made their own versions of the music,
I see. So wait, let me get this straight. So Harvard University comes to you and says, like, we're making an animation that shows the inner life of a cell. We'd like you to compose some music for that.
Exactly.
And that was your job. Yeah. Okay.
And that's my job. And that's what I do every day.
All right. Well, that's great. So the business itself, Massive Productions, you said you started about 20 years ago. I'm assuming it was just you, and it was meant to be a recording studio, I guess, to begin with. Is that right? Where are we now? Is it is it still just you? Do you have any employees in the business? How is it sort of scaled?
It is still just me. So I am the very smallest of small business.
Good.
Over the years, I have obviously found people to do other things for me.
Yeah.
Accountants and lawyers and all that kind of stuff, and insurance providers and that. But it is still just me here, and I hope to keep it that way as long as I can.
Yeah, good. So I get fascinated by clients and readers. I do a lot of writing and interviewing, and I meet business people that have been running businesses for a long time. So you've been doing this for 20 years. You said just at the beginning of our conversation that you had to learn business. I mean, you weren't a business major in college.
Correct.
How'd you do that? Like, why do you think you're still around 20 years later? I'm sure you made tons of mistakes, and we can certainly talk about those, but I'm kind of curious, like, what you've done right that you're still here and still, you're running a profitable business.
Right. That's a good question. I think, absolutely I've made tons of mistakes, but I've also made a lot of good choices and met a lot of really good people. I have to say, owning a business, a lot of it, a small business, a lot of it is accounting and making sure, those quarterly taxes are being filed correctly and property taxes are being filed properly. So I think early on I made a good connection with a really good accounting firm that's stayed with me all of these years. And I think that's probably the most important thing, is to have someone that knows numbers, take care of the numbers for you.
I can't believe you say that, because I didn't even say this to you. And you do. I'm a CPA, so like when you're like, so like good for you, Matt, for saying that. You're 100% right. It is about But you know,
It
it's
is.
funny. I mean, a lot of people I've interviewed that are running much larger companies or that become known for their brands or whatever.
Hmm.
Damon John's a good example. I mean, I've done a few things with him, a guy from Shark Tank, and I remember him saying like one of the things he had to learn was financial literacy. He called it. Like you have to learn how to buy something for $1 and sell it for 3, and you have to learn how to to account for your money.
Right.
Otherwise, you go out of business, right? I guess you
Yes.
learn that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to really, yeah. I mean, as you know your business and grow your business, you have to, know what it takes to not only make your clients happy, but also make yourself happy,
It's good. It's good advice. How do you find customers? I mean, how do you find them?
Um, you know, over, over a 20-year lifespan of the business, I mean, it really, for me, has been word of mouth. I mean, I've done a lot of, Facebook advertising and social media advertising, and that stuff gets attention. I'm not so convinced that it gets that much business, But really, the most powerful thing is to really make your clients feel not only like you gave them a great product, but that you listen to them and you're friends with them. And if you offer that type of client service, they're going to tell other people. And in an industry like this, where I'm dealing mostly with advertising agencies and corporate communications offices, names get passed along. People leave one agency, go to another agency. And over 20 years, I've spread out, throughout New England quite well, and where I have a pretty large client base.
Right. So, and it's funny because your business again it's very similar to mine as well. It's hard at first when you first start up.
Yeah.
And I've realized that you actually need to give away. This is why you need capital when you start up a business, because you do need to give away services almost for free or at a much
You do.
greater big discount, right?
You
Because
do.
that's the only way you get customers. And then once you start getting customers and you do a good job for them, that turns into referrals. And is that is that kind of the path that you followed, like from when you first started up the business?
Absolutely. I mean, when I first started, well, right out of college, I got a job at a recording studio in Hartford called Producers 2. They're not there anymore.
Right.
And I was like the studio manager, and
Right.
I pretty much just made coffee and like kept track of the daily schedule. But when I told him I was leaving, he was really kind to me. He let me, um, work 20 hours at the studio and 20 hours at home. And it was like a 6-month transition. So that gave me time to kind of really make some contacts. And actually, when I left, a lot of clients kind of came with me that I was working with at that studio.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I mean,
So that,
sometimes it happens. I didn't pursue anybody, but that's the way it happened a
yeah.
little bit. And
Right.
he really helped me kind of start the business slowly, where a lot of people are like, I'm going to start a business, and sometimes it could work depending on the product, but you really do need time to kind of grow relationships. And like you said, give away things for free. I did so many, when I first started, I was doing a lot of band work and choirs and whatever I could
Right.
record, I would
Right.
record it and I'd give them a fantastic deal. It would sound great. Over the years, I've kind of shifted away from the music side more to kind of corporate production, and I love it.
Your business is a pretty capital intensive business, right? I
Mhm.
mean, you need equipment to
Yes.
do what you got to do. Where did your capital come from 20 years ago when you were a lowly studio manager and trying to start up your own business? Was this
Yeah.
where'd you get the money to do it, if I can ask?
Yeah. Recording and music has always been a passion.
Yeah.
So when your hobby or your passion kind of becomes your profession, it's a special thing because not only are equipment purchases write-offs, they're also, like Christmas presents and
True.
so again, I kind of did everything very slow, right? So when I first started off on my own, I had a computer, I had a couple microphones, equipment that I purchased and speakers and all kinds of stuff, but I did it one step at a time, and kept building and building and building and building until we moved the studio out of the home down to this facility here in Rocky Hill. where I set up probably a 1,500 square foot studio. And then just about 8 years after that, we bought the building. I expanded the studio to about 3,000 square feet.
Huh.
And so it's been this gradual progression. It wasn't like I got a business loan and started off. I did the best I could with what I had. I made a lot of good connections. I was kind to people, and I did it step by step.
Great. Yeah, that is great. You just mentioned that you bought the building. So
Yes.
talk to me a little bit about that. What prompted you to buy it? And I just read a piece just recently why, and this is a homeowners thing, not a business thing, but like now is like the worst time ever to like buy a house, for example, because of interest rates the way they are. It's much better to rent right now. But I'm curious what prompted you to buy the building, and what has been the result of that? Is it a good move or not?
Sure. So I think it was 2013. Yeah. So about 10 years ago, I was kind of looking around for a bigger space, and my landlord back then, a really nice guy who was a great business owner in his own right, who kind of mentored me a little bit. He was like, you know what? He's like, why don't you buy this place? And I was like, okay. I was
His
like,
place.
yeah.
Okay.
Because he, if you know my studio, it's kind of split into two. It's kind of split in half. There's like the music side over here, which, it's a big music room with a big grand piano, and then this side it's smaller. I have two smaller recording rooms. So initially, I just had these two rooms, and I wanted a bigger space. And he was very kind. We sat down with a lawyer. We drew up some terms. We did an agreement, a 10-year loan. No banks involved in this particular loan.
So it's seller financed. Wow. Okay.
Yep. Seller financed, everything legitimate, with a lawyer and everything. And that was 2013, and now it's November 2023. I think we paid it off in July. And it was probably one of the smartest things we've ever done.
Why?
Well, we had renters, one continuous renter who rents upstairs, another renter that rents on the first floor here. It's not a terribly large building. It's under 10,000 square feet, but the renters paid for the mortgage. And after 10 years, it's paid for. Building, the building's appraised almost double what it was when we purchased it for. So it's put us in a really good place as the business gets older, and as I start thinking about the next step for me.
Right.
It's just another notch in the belt. Something else we got.
I don't know how old you are. I'm in my mid 50s, and the average age of the U.S. small business owner is 55 years old, according to the Small Business Administration. So I'm curious. I mean, you talk about like next steps, what you're going to do. You have a great asset in the building.
Yep.
Are you thinking now about sort of succession planning or exiting your business? Your business is, I feel like your business is your brand. Like if I'm gonna do work with you guys, I want to do work with Matt.
Right.
Not necessarily massive productions. And by the way, that's not a bad thing. It's just, does that concern you though that when it comes time to exit your business, that there isn't a business to sell, just let alone just the building or any assets that you have?
Right. No, I think there is a business to sell.
Okay.
And you are correct. And that I think it's one of my biggest strengths. Right, is that people come here for me, not necessarily for a recording studio. They come here for my take on how I make things sound, or my the way I produce radio, things like that. I mean, I'm in my mid 40s, 20 years in business. Yeah. I still love it every day, but I am thinking more about, what else can I be doing? So my kids are very busy here. All my kids play music. They're all very musical. I've always been joking with my daughter that someday she'll fire me and take over here.
Right.
And I do hope that maybe one of my children, want to take the family business here and take it to a different place, take it to the next level. That's my hope, is legacy, not necessarily selling a business, but where my kids can take it.
I love that. And it's nice to me thinking about that in your mid 40s as well, and maybe having a plan around that. And if your kids are already going down that road of, they have musical background, I mean, they could very well have an interest, in doing that. It's funny when you mentioned that you were a studio manager, before buying this business. Would you want your kids to get some experience, outside of massive productions first before they would, take over if that ultimately does happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's very important. Not only just for experience, but to know the to really understand what it's like to make a living and to understand the value of a dollar. I think it's important to understand that, and a lot of kids these days don't. That's why here at Massive Productions we have the janitorial department. Starts very young.
I get it. You train them early.
Yeah.
But we won't tell anybody that's defending child labor laws or anything like that. Okay,
that's right.
Just between you and me here.
No, my daughter is my social media manager right now. So she has to post every day on multiple channels with good pictures and some content that I feed her. And but yeah, I think it's important to kind of obviously we have all our own first job kind of stories. I met my wife at my first job at a grocery store, so
I
think it's good to get a little experience in other not just
I think so.
Around the family business.
Yeah, and at the very least, your kids might meet their eventual partners at their first job. So who knows, right? You just mentioned your daughter's doing social media for you, which is great, and it's obviously great to be out there and and doing that. But then you just said earlier in our conversation that most of your work comes from referrals. I mean, you've been running the business for 20 years. You've built a name and a brand. Yeah. So why even do social media? Like what was is it worth it?
I have a love-hate relationship with social, which I think a lot of people in my generation probably do as well.
Yep.
I do see it as a valuable tool to kind of show that you're out there, you're doing stuff. Whether or not it really drives results for my business, I'm not sold on that. I don't get a lot of clicks from it. I don't get a lot of new production jobs from it, but I think, just showing people that you're out there and you're at the top of your game and all that stuff, I think that's important. Whether or not I'm sitting around at night looking at all the comments, that's, I don't enjoy that, but it's something that you kind of have to do a little bit, but.
Yeah, you got to keep an eye on it, and it's good. But at the same time, you can't get too obsessed, with that stuff. Yep. You had mentioned, and thank you once again about the importance of having a good accountant. But yes. Do you do your own accounting work? Do you manage your own cash flow? Do you collect your own receivables? Who does that for you?
I do what I call the fun stuff, right? So I do the estimates, invoicing, receivables, and a lot of bill pays. But in terms of everything
the fun
else,
stuff. I would have thought the fun stuff would be actually like producing the music, and recording stuff. But okay, if you think that's fun,
that's true. I do enjoy that stuff too. I mean, it's funny. People are always like, you must just live in the studio and just, record guitar all day long. And it's, I don't. It's like, as soon as I can get out of here, I'm at home on the couch like everybody else. But no, really, like the fun stuff. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the business side, yeah, I do love, the estimates and invoicing and receiving deposits and depositing, and I love doing that stuff. And that's easy stuff. I mean, I enjoy that. But anything when it comes to, quarterly estimates and sales tax usage, right, and, federal payments and state payments, right, and it's just.
You have your accountant do that stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You mentioned about doing the invoicing. So you do projects with clients. And so, I'm assuming you get deposits up front for, for some of these projects, and then you bill when the job is done.
Correct.
In your 20 years, I mean, you must have had, a couple of, collection issues or receivable issues where people didn't pay. I've had them.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious how you've dealt with that in the past and how you avoid getting into those situations. Because you can do great work
Right.
and still not get paid. And it's
Very true.
one of the issues of running a business. So I'm kind of curious how you handled that.
Yeah. I don't have too many clients that haven't paid. There's been a couple companies that have gone out of business. One of my big clients, some people in New England remember the appliance chain Bernie's. They were all over New England, and they were one of my big radio clients way back when I first started, and they went out of business and they owed me plenty of invoices. And I mean, it's super frustrating because, especially as a very small business like myself, I don't have the power to go out and litigate and try to recover that. So it's just a loss. And I mean, over the years, there's been some, but nothing major, nothing that's been, too troublesome or would hurt us financially, but it's out there and it happens.
You've been doing this for a while now, Matt, and no one say it's not like you're living on a yacht, but you're like you're doing good, and you built a nice livelihood for your family, and that's great. And I'm assuming like you're at the stage now where you could pick and choose, and you probably do, some of the customers or clients that you can work with, and I'm wondering, are there any types of work or any types of clients that you would walk away from or you wouldn't want to work with at this stage now? I'm sure you were hungrier at the beginning of your career.
Yep.
But now, what, in other words, what's a good customer for you?
For me, I mean, I like advertising agencies. I like people that are doing really good production work. So people that are doing really high-end radio commercials, or now digital radio, that you'd hear on Spotify or Pandora or something. But, I mean, for me, for my business, it's kind of like turning away, music stuff that I'm not interested in. I went to school for jazz guitar, so I love to record a lot of jazz groups and things like that. I kind of try to stay away from types of music that I don't like, where when I was younger, I would record everything from like punk rock to hip hop and gospel music and whatever. And now it's kind of like, if I pick music, it's going to be something that I enjoy and I want to do. And that is, something that I appreciate, that over these 20 years and the success I've had, that I'm able to kind of do what I like, do what I enjoy. And not every job is enjoyable, but you find joy in it, you find stuff that you like to do.
Yeah, it's a real perk of running a business. There's a lot of downsides to running a business. There's a lot of headaches to running a business, but you're in it long enough and you put enough cash in the bank. Different than an employee of a company who pretty much has to do whatever their boss tells them to do.
Right.
You can get to a point where you can pick and choose the kind of work you want to do. And, you love jazz and, so you want to stick with that kind of work. I have no patience for jazz. I'm more of a classic rock guy. So I would probably be leaning towards that stuff.
Sure.
But at least you get to a point of a point of your career where you can make those choices. And that's really good.
Right. I mean, owning a business offers you a lot of flexibility. You are working, all the time, always thinking about it. It's your baby. You're always thinking about it. And sometimes, I kind of think you almost have, like, instead of having a boss, you have 50 bosses. But, it does offer you a lot of flexibility. I mean, sometimes when I want to go on a vacation or something, that's when I wish I had a corporate job or something.
Right.
I could just sign off and take off. But
I always laugh because I clearly have a lot of friends that work at corporations, and they go on vacation and you get the out of office message,
right?
And I'm like, I have never left an out of office message in my life. Can't do it
either.
You can't do it either. Matt, well, thank you very much for talking with me. I learned a lot about your business, and I think you showed some great advice for other people running businesses as well. It's just great to hear other people's stories of their challenges and, some of the things they succeeded with. And you've communicated that well. So thank you very much.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
Matt Berky is the owner, engineer, composer of Massive Productions, LLC. Everybody, find the inner life of a cell. I'm assuming that, is that like on YouTube somewhere or Spotify?
It's all over YouTube, yeah. Yep.
All over YouTube. So I got to find this so we can listen to some of Matt's compositions. Matt, again, thank you.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure speaking with you. Everybody, you have been listening and or watching the Hartford Small Biz Ahead podcast. My name is Gene March. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope you learned a little something. If you need any advice or tips or help in running your business, please visit us at smallbizahead.com or sba.thehartford.com. Again, my name is Gene March. We'll see you again next time. Take care.